What amazes me is that the most compelling character of the year is an ape. War for the Planet of the Apes stars Andy Serkis, Woody Harrelson, and is directed by Matt Reeves. What's up, guys? So I saw War for the Planet of the Apes opening night Thursday, and I was gonna do a review that night, but this movie just really sat with me. I went through just a whirlwind of emotions with it, so I wanted to let this one sit. And before I get into this review, let me just say this movie is amazing, outstanding. And would I have said that if I did the review last night? Probably not. But I think the best movies do that. Sometimes the best movies need to percolate. You need to let them simmer a bit, you know. Take some time. And I'm glad I did that with this movie because I can't get it out of my head. But before I get into what's so great about War, let's get into the plot. So what's cool is War for the Planet of the Apes picks up right after Dawn. And if you remember at the end of Dawn, Gary Oldman's character said they contacted the soldiers, the military of the North, and they're on their way. And so really this picks up right where that one left off. And right at the beginning of the movie, there is this big battle. And we see that the military actually has apes on their side, being the apes that were on Koba's side. So this is like a whole new set of problems for Caesar and the group. Not only are they battling humans, but they're also battling other apes. But without getting into any spoilers, let me just say something horrible happens that affects Caesar so much so that he can't get his leadership bearings. And so he goes on a rampage after the Colonel, played by Woody Harrelson. And there is a major price to pay for, I guess you could say, his mistake, because he should have stayed the course with the rest of the apes. Now, one thing I love about all three of these movies is they're different. The first one is really the evolution of Caesar from a baby. What was so great about the first one was how Caesar came into his own and realized that he is not like other apes. He's intelligent. And he used that to his advantage to get out of the shelter. And the second one was kind of the apes and the humans having to come together for a greater cause. And of course, everybody's not gonna see eye to eye. And Koba was such a major part of the second one. Koba had a very different experience than Caesar, a much more tragic experience. And Koba actually plays a part in the third movie, even though Koba is dead. Because throughout the movie, Caesar keeps having these visions of Koba and starts realizing that he is becoming the very thing that he was trying to stop in Dawn. Koba always told him that you cannot trust the humans, they will turn on you. And the rage gets the best of Caesar and he just completely has vengeance on his mind. Now first let's talk about Caesar. What Andy Serkis did with this character is nothing short of amazing. He took a character that is essentially an ape and made him more compelling than any other character I've seen in the last decade. I've posted this on social media. I think Caesar is one of the most compelling, one of the most interesting characters I've seen in a long time. I think a big reason for that is because, one, there's just so many different layers to him. But two, essentially he's a leader. And when you're a leader, you have to put your own personal needs aside for the betterment of the people under you. And that's what Caesar does. I think Dawn really showed that the best. Caesar was a leader 100% throughout that whole movie, constantly putting others before himself. And leaders have to make the tough decisions, and Caesar is constantly faced with this. And what's interesting in this one is the Colonel, he is a leader too. And I think the best villains are those villains that we can understand where they're coming from. They're not necessarily evil. He is doing what he can to take care of the people under him. And in his mind, the apes, they are a complete threat. He wants to do away with them. Also, what makes this movie so great is, I guess, what I'd like to call a brotherhood of characters. If you remember from Lord of the Rings, that trilogy, you didn't just have one character, say like Frodo, that you rooted for the whole time. Frodo depended on Sam. Aragorn depended on Gimli and Legolas. This movie is no different. Caesar has this group of friends, Rocket and Maurice, and they are just as compelling as Caesar is, especially Maurice. Maurice might be my favorite character in this movie, actually. I gotta guess that Matt Reeves, who did Dawn, it must have been a treat for him to do a sequel and, hey, maybe focus a little bit more on characters that I didn't focus as much on in the previous movie. As a matter of fact, Maurice has a relationship with this human that they come upon, this little girl in the middle of the movie, and she's mute. And their relationship is just beautiful. And I love the scene where Caesar says, we can't take her. And Maurice says, I can't leave her. In other words, if she doesn't go, I don't go. And I loved that. Maurice was such a great character in this. Also, Caesar goes through hell in this movie, and this whole section is just completely riveting. And I'm not gonna lie, there are quite a few times in this movie where I almost teared up. Just because I love this character so much. He feels like a real ape. Also, the CGI in this movie, insanely good. Much better than even the first two movies. It's almost hyper-realistic. And War for the Planet of the Apes, it's so good, as I knew it would be. And now we have another, I guess what you could call a perfect trilogy, even though no movie is really perfect. But what I mean by that is all three movies are on the same level. It's not two movies that are really great and then one movie that's not as good, you know. Like Return of the Jedi, even though Return of the Jedi has some great stuff in it, I don't think it's up to the level of Star Wars and Empire. Whereas this, you got a complete trilogy that is phenomenal, just like Lord of the Rings, just like the Dark Knight trilogy, and it's all subjective, of course. I know some people have their own opinions about the Dark Knight trilogy, but I find that to be a perfect trilogy. So, as you can guess, in the end, I'm going to give this movie a Trapped on an Island. Yesterday, I was going to give it a purchase worthy just because of how emotional I felt after it, but I think that's to the movie's benefit. It really gets to you. And also, before I go, just a little bit of spoiler talk. So you have been warned, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to miss the hell out of the character Caesar. When Caesar dies in this, you know, of course I knew that this was going to happen. You know, this was going to be the last movie in the trilogy. And it's fitting that the character Caesar comes full circle. And I think that's the perfect ending for him to die. But it really just got to me. Like, this was like if Rocky died. That's how great of a character Caesar is. And it's no easy feat to create a brand new trilogy out of a series of movies that have been around for 50 years and create a new character out of that, Caesar being that new character. So anyway, guys, that is my review for War for the Planet of the Apes. Phenomenal film. I think it's definitely in my top 10 right now, but I think it's going to move up even more. Probably in my top 5. So anyway, what are your thoughts on War for the Planet of the Apes? Looking forward to hearing them. Also, come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day, every day, and on Fridays we do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you like what I'm doing, please hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.